What's up, everybody? And today we are reacting to The Secret Soldier the US was afraid to send to war. These titles are so, like, dramatic. But I'm excited. This might be a good one. For those of you who are unaware, I'm a former British Royal Marines Commando, and I like to use a bit of my history, my expertise, to watch some of these videos and maybe give a little bit more insight as someone who was in the military. And I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, like this video and comment down below and subscribe, because it all helps with the algorithm and helps me do this more often for you guys. So, there'll be a link down below in the description for the original video. There will also be a link down below to the new projects me and my brother are working on, DREADNOUGHT, MEADERY. Please check that out as well. That's it. I think let's pop it up. Let's have some fun. All right. Oh, just to caveat it, I have a bit of a cold, so I might have a bit of a runny nose. I've got a tissue to wipe my nose every now and again, okay? So you're not think I'm a weirdo or anything.
It was the night before one of the most transcendental military invasions in human history, and hundreds of C-47 sky trains darted across the English Channel, carrying thousands of brave paratroopers about to face the darkest chapter of their lives.
Yup.
The warplanes carried a group of paratroopers unlike any other, with mohawk haircuts and tribal face paint. The outfit, led by the rebellious and untamed Jake McNasty McNeese, laughed and joked, even as their aircraft was engulfed by fierce German flak fire.
Whoa. I think, so I think I already know a little bit about these. The face paint and stuff like that. At the end of the day, they're going into what could potentially be the end of their lives, right? So why not paint the faces? Very pagan-esque, isn't it, in a way? Very Native American-esque. We know that
as the sky
we got a person in the background of a video. Silas, get out of here! My son came in to have a quick cheeky peek. He just shouted, "Sorry, Daddy!" We do know that Native Americans would paint their face before they went into war. That is something that is done quite a lot by that culture. And people think that other people did it as well. We think we know that the Celts might have done it. We have no proof of the Norsemen doing it. The Scandinavian people, we have no proof of that. Even though you see a lot of TikTokers with face paint on and stuff, pretending to be Vikings. There's no evidence of that stuff. But it is a way of showing that you're going into war, a bit of aggression, maybe intimidation of the the opposite side.
Train lost altitude, McNeese orders his men to prepare for the jump. The lights inside the cabin then turned red, and the men scrambled to their feet amid fire and thunder. As McNeese and his comrade Willie made it to the door, flak burst through the warplane's belly, hitting Willie's backpack and unraveling his parachute inside the plane.
Oh, shit.
Now significantly damaged, the C-37 continued to lose altitude as Willie desperately tried to gather his parachute and move away from the door so other paratroopers could jump. McNeese then jumped into the flak-lit skies over France, and the Skytrain exploded in midair only a few seconds later. There was no time to mourn, as McNeese and the rest of the notorious Filthy 13 outfit were now behind enemy lines in Normandy.
I've said this in videos before about World War II and D-Day and everything. There's so many crazy stories that have been lost into time that you wouldn't even believe are real, right? We get a handful of stories of real encounters like this, but there's almost going to be 10 times more that have been lost to time that are just as crazy or scary as these ones. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's kind of sad.
And they had a crucial mission to finish.
Dark Docks. There will be a link down below to the original video.
Jake McNeese grew up during the depths of the Great Depression and had to work to support his family from the age of 10. Hunting and fishing to feed his kin gave the young man a formidable physical condition that helped him stand out when he finally went back to school. In high school, McNeese joined the football team and found work as a fireman. He soon earned a reputation.
So he was a bit of a big guy then, was he? Bit of a strong, athletic guy.
For being a defiant teen who would do anything to win. One of his teachers would remember him, quote, "He was not afraid of the devil and was always doing the unconventional thing." Soon after McNeese's graduation, the U.S. entered World War II. Then, after a nasty brawl in his hometown in Oklahoma, where he beat a man to a pulp, he decided to enlist to get the police off his back.
Yeah. Probably a good idea, that, to be fair, isn't it?
McNeese did not want to join the infantry, and instead decided to join the emerging U.S. paratrooper experiment. He figured he would be dropped deep inside enemy lines and obey no one while engaging German soldiers in hand-to-hand combat.
I mean, yeah, if you've got to be that type of person to be a para, whether that be a US or a UK para, where you know that there's a big chance when you drop that you're going to be isolated and you're going to be behind enemy lines. That's a big thing for paras. There's a big chance that that could happen. Although there isn't really any drops anymore, the paras haven't dropped in a long time. It's still a reality if anything ever kicks off, and that's a scary reality, so they have to be good soldiers.
He would later say, quote, "If a man wanted to kill me, I wanted to look him in the eye."
Fair one.
Thus, the mischievous Jake McNeese became the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment's problem. A wild bunch. Including paratrooper units in the U.S. military was a risky and ambitious experiment, as the American authorities knew many troopers would not make it to the ground alive.
Yep.
The recruiter told McNeese as such when he asked to join, going as far as letting him know that only 10 out of 1,000 would-be paratroopers made it past the excruciating physical training. Still, McNeese excelled during training and quickly became the best recruit in his unit.
Hell yes.
But he was as reckless as he was fit.
That's
Soon
brilliant.
became known around the camp for his defiant antics. Afraid that he would influence other...
It's just one of them type of people, I guess. You always get these types of people that... There's some in the Royal Marines in training as well that just defied the laws of physics when it comes to how physically fit they are. For some reason, they're just absolute animals and no one knows how. You could see them. There's loads of them. You know, they're in the Royal Marines, they're in the paras, in the US paratroopers. They just defy expectations somehow, and they're just absolute fizz beasts. I was never one of them. I was never one. But they're out there. Jim Galvin, you'll know him. He's been on my podcast. He is a good friend of mine. He does PT in. He's one of them.
Other recruits, McNeese was put into a particular troublemaker unit, where 5 would-be paratroopers were assigned to a single tent. The accommodations were derelict, with the tents having no flooring besides the muddy dirt of the Georgian countryside. But McNeese and his men didn't care about appearances, opting to save water for cooking instead of cleaning themselves, and soon earning the nickname of the Dirty Five. McNeese and the Dirty Five continued to gain a reputation as rebels, missing roll calls, getting drunk, and participating in bar brawls regularly. One night...
So there were quite a lot of outlaws, I guess. 5 of them. It reminds me very much of the beginning of the SAS, how they got some outlaws to do that. Not outlaws, but just people who work in a different... Like, they think in a different way. Do you know what I mean?
After causing a significant fight inside a bar, 2 military police officers intervened. When the MPs started to beat one of McNeese's friends into submission, he assaulted them, disarmed them, and fired in every direction to empty the guns, leaving the officers injured and perplexed.
Ooh.
McNeese was severely punished, and was the only recruit not to be promoted during his training. Still, the authorities knew he was the best, and they needed him. When someone suggested to McNeese's commander that they should discharge him, he responded, quote, "McNeese isn't hurting anything. There will be a time when you'll be awful glad to have McNeese around."
Yeah, that's true. They're the type of people you want on your good side. Throw them into combat and they're on your side. You've got an absolute beast. Do you know what I mean?
Mohawks and war paint. By the time they made it to England, the Dirty Five had grown into the Filthy 13. The
Wow.
group then continued rehearsing jumps in preparation for the Normandy landings. Even out of combat, McNeese had lost several friends to parachute malfunctions. Still, the Filthy 13 relished in the danger and risk that came with the job, and when they were not jumping out of a plane, they were causing mayhem in camp as their way to let off steam.
Right.
During-
Some people are like that, but that's okay. And that a good commander knows how to deal with these type of people at the end of the day.
In an advanced demolition training session a few days before D-Day, McNeese set up a charge in a nearby tree that was triggered when a soldier on patrol walked by, sending the man into a panic. The top brass arrested the entire group, but they were released to take part in the Normandy operation.
Yes, they needed as many people as they possibly
The 13
could.
men had now formed a unique and feared unit. Before taking off for Normandy, the men saw McNeese wearing face paint and a mohawk haircut. He told them he was part Indian, and it was part of his cultural and spiritual heritage. The paint,
Was he actually part Indian though? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments. Maybe he was.
he said, would be an excellent camouflage once they were behind enemy lines. In truth, only part of the story was genuine. Jake's mother was half Choctaw,
Oh,
but
okay.
everything else was made up. Encouraged by McNeice, the men cut their hair and painted their faces. They then boarded the warplane, sporting a daunting look that would be spread around the world as the press released images of the peculiar warriors about to be thrown into Nazi-occupied France.
I'd love to know what Native Americans think about this, to be honest with you. A lot of people would say it's cultural appropriation. Whether you stand with that or not, I don't really care, but it makes me wonder what Native Americans think about it. You know?
Everyone wanted to know what the Filthy 13 were really capable of. Normandy jump. Before deploying, McNeice's mission was shifted. The task he'd been assigned was changed into a much more vital role. He and his men had to blow up the bridges below the Douve Canal and then capture and hold the main bridge. The crucial mission required additional support, and McNeice asked for 6 more paratroopers, knowing that he would lose at least half his men during the jump. The unit took off from England at 11 p.m. on June 5, 1944, along with nearly 1,000 other C-47s, loaded with thousands of paratroopers.
They must have known that this would go down in record books forever. Like, imagine being one of the lads at D-Day. Like, you're just getting ready. You know that this is going to be massive, and it's either going to win the war or it's going to lose the war. It's an all-or-nothing thing. It's just crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy to think that, like, imagine speaking to someone who's been part of it. You know, I think the last person who fought on D-Day has already died now at this point, I'm pretty sure. But man, the emotions would have been just crazy.
They enjoyed a clear and bright night for about 20 minutes before seeing the first flak set off around them. The following minutes were hectic and savage for the young paratroopers. Their aircraft was heavily engaged and losing altitude, forcing them to jump prematurely. McNeice barely escaped from the plane before it exploded, and many of his friends lost their lives, including Willie, whose parachute had been unfurled by enemy fire.
Ugh.
The entire paratrooper operation was plagued with tragedy, and half the troopers that took off from Britain would never return. It was no different for the Filthy 13.
That's crazy. Half of them. Like, that's absolute nuts for numbers, isn't it? All that hard work, first jump, boom, gone.
And McNeice lost over half of his men during the jump and the minutes after that. Still, 3 of the surviving men managed to reunite on the war-torn fields of Normandy, and they were joined by 12 other U.S. paratroopers who had been separated from their units. From the moment they landed, they were targeted by German soldiers, and they had to react quickly and defend themselves. The Americans identified themselves by the sound of their rifles in contrast to German fire.
That's a good way of doing it.
They were able to regroup and repel the Germans.
Rifles do have different sounds depending on the caliber and all this lot. I wonder, you know, the caliber and reloading and just the sound of the round, the length of the barrel will all play into different sounds. I don't actually know. It wasn't the M1 at that point. It had something else. The Paras had something really good, didn't they? They had like a smaller automatic weapon, and I forgot what it was called. Let me know in the comments. I can see the image of it in my head, but I forgot what it was called. And I don't necessarily know what the Germans had. They had that like rounder looking automatic, didn't they? Let me know in the comments. I forgot what it is. Holding the bridge.
Once they were on their feet again, McNeice and his men managed to reach the main Douve Canal, blow up some smaller bridges, and move to the main bridge. The objective was to capture and hold it so it could be used by American troops. If they could not keep the crossing, they had orders to blow it up, so the Germans could not use it to reinforce the beachheads.
Interesting.
Against all odds, the Filthy 13 dug in on one side of the bridge and maintained control, preventing the Germans from crossing. Then, after 3 days of holding the bridge, under constant German fire from the other side of the canal, the U.S. authorities decided that McNeice's unit had been wiped out and sent a squadron of P-51 Mustangs to blow out the bridge.
They should make a movie of this, shouldn't they? They should make a movie about this, if I'm honest with you. It sounds like a fantastic movie.
The Mustangs swept in and destroyed the bridge, while also striking the German and U.S. positions on each side of the canal. McNeice and his men were well dug in and survived the strike, after which they continued to defend their positions. 2 days passed, and the Germans were significantly pushed back from the beachheads. A large group of Germans was then trapped in a flooded area near where McNeice and his men were positioned. There were over 700 enemy soldiers, and McNeice had managed to assemble a team of 40.
Wow. He managed to get a team of 40? That's pretty decent.
Fortunately, the German commanders sent a messenger asking McNeice to surrender, thus avoiding a complete wipeout. However, McNeice responded by saying they would never yield, but were more than welcome to submit to them. The German officer was livid and felt insulted, so he decided to attack. McNeice then ordered his men to hold their fire until most Germans left their trenches.
This makes me want to watch Band of Brothers again. Oh, that show. That show is so good. I've not watched it in years. It must be upwards of 10 years since I've watched it. I gotta watch that again. It's amazing.
By now, Jake had machine guns, mortars, and all the equipment he needed for a formidable defense. Still, when the Germans were midway in their charge towards McNeice, he ordered his men to open fire. The onslaught was devastating for the Germans, and McNeice claims to have taken the lives of nearly 700 enemy soldiers.
Holy! Holy!
Continued mayhem.
That's nuts!
The Filthy 13 were made up of over 30 different men throughout the war, and continued to wreak havoc on the Germans while enjoying every minute of it. Despite grave injuries and incredibly antagonizing odds, McNeice survived and accomplished numerous missions. He credits his rebellious attitude and daredevil approach to his survival. Paratroopers were already some of the best, most aggressive U.S. soldiers in the war.
It's true.
And McNeice took that perception and scaled it up to become a genuinely fearsome threat to the Axis powers.
At the end of the day, they had to be. They have to be. Just like British paras, you have to be. I know there's a lot of competition between the Royal Marines and the paras, right? It's always there. But we both have a genuine respect for each other as well. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, we both know that if we want a job done, we can rely on the other side, the paras or the Royal Marines. And that also goes for US paratroopers, right? Their training is fantastic. They're some of the best, and you have to be. They have to be. Also, that weapon right there looks very familiar. There it is!
McNeice's father would later comment about his son's war accomplishments. Quote, "I think he was trying to build upon the idea that if they're scared of us as crazy paratroopers, well, this just makes us look crazier."
Yeah, I mean, it's
McNeice
true.
became one of the only paratroopers to make 4 wartime jumps and live to tell the tale.
Whoa!
After Normandy, he jumped as part of Operation Market Garden in the Netherlands. Then he was dropped in Germany before the Battle of the Bulge for reconnaissance duty.
Oh my god!
As the war waned, he volunteered for Pathfinder training, anticipating he would sit out the rest of the war in a training camp in England. To his surprise, his unit was called for one last jump into Bastogne to guide and resupply drops. He was
Wow.
eventually awarded the French Legion of Honor Chevalier class for his brave actions in France in 2012.
Holy.
At the end of the day, the officers that put up with McNeice's antics during training were proven correct. The war needed men like him.
It's true.
The Filthy 13 became an iconic and legendary unit, not only for its over-the-top looks, but also for its incredible combat deeds.
An absolute legend. This is what the military needs, is people like this.
Jake McNeice, with the help of historian Kaleo Griffith, would eventually document all of his wartime adventures.
Whoa. That's him in his book. The Filthy 13. Oh, I gotta read that. I've gotta read it.
In the book The Filthy 13, From the Dust Bowl to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, which only added more fuel to the legend.
I've gotta read that. I've gotta get that book. I've gotta get it. It looks great. And it would be great on my collection back here. I gotta read it. Let me know if you've read it down in the comment section down below, and I might pick it up and get it for myself. That was a fucking great video. Let me know if you've got any more recommendations like that. I would love to watch more about stuff like that. There'll be a link down below to the original video, as well as all my stuff. Please like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and all that good stuff. And until next time, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.